All right, developers, let's have a real talk. You spend weeks, maybe months, writing this beautiful, elegant code for a new feature. You ship it, and then crickets. Users either ignore it or seem totally confused by it. So what is going on? Well, today, we're going to crack open the user's brain using a super powerful tool, behavioral economics.
I mean, you've totally been here, right? You build this awesome feature with a ton of options, giving users maximum control, maximum flexibility. You think you're giving them this incredible gift of choice, but instead, they just leave. They bounce. Why? Well, the answer isn't in your code base. It's inside their heads.
Okay, so let's dive right in. First thing we have to do is tear down this huge misconception that we all kind of have, which is the myth of the perfectly logical, perfectly rational user. For like decades, the big idea was that more choice is always a good thing. More options means more freedom, which has to be better for the user. But what if that's not actually how the human brain works at all? Okay, check this out. This is a famous experiment involving jam. Seriously. One day, a grocery store set up a table with 24 different kinds of jam. It got a lot of attention, lots of people stopped to look, but only 3% of them actually bought a jar. The next day, they put out the same table but with only 6 jams. Yeah, fewer people stopped, but a whopping 30% of them made a purchase. That is 10 times the sales just by offering fewer options. It's the perfect example of how too much choice can literally paralyze us. So if users aren't these perfectly rational beings, does that mean they're just chaotic and unpredictable? Not at all. Actually, their irrationality is surprisingly predictable, and there's a whole framework that helps us understand it. And that framework is behavioral economics. It's this amazing field that studies how all the messy emotional and social stuff leads us to make predictably irrational decisions. And for us, the people building the products, that word predictably is pure gold. Because if it's predictable, we can design for it. A really great way to think about this comes from a Nobel Prize winner, Daniel Kahneman. He said we basically have two systems of thinking. System 1 is your gut. It's fast, automatic, intuitive. System 2 is your slow, analytical, conscious brain. And because our brains are always trying to save energy, we spend almost all of our time running on System 1. Your users are making split-second gut decisions, not carefully weighing the pros and cons of every button they click. Okay, so the theory is cool, but how can we actually use this? Well, let's open up the Behavioral Economics Toolkit and look at a few key patterns you can start spotting out in the wild, and probably in your own PRs. First up is the one we just saw with the gem, decision paralysis. It's exactly what it sounds like. When you give a user too many choices, their brain just gets overloaded. It can't process everything, so it just gives up. It makes no choice at all. It's the brain's version of a 404 error. And here's the cool part. You've probably already built the solution to this a dozen times. Think about a classic 3-tier pricing page. Why 3 and not 20? Decision paralysis. Or a curated top picks list on an e-commerce site. These aren't just random design fads. They are intentional strategies to lower the cognitive load and gently guide the user toward making any decision. Okay, next tool in our kit is loss aversion. And this one is a huge deal. The psychology is simple. The pain of losing something feels about twice as strong as the pleasure of gaining that exact same thing. We are fundamentally wired to avoid losses. This is why the way you frame something is so incredibly important. Look at this. A 90% success rate feels fantastic, right? Inspiring. But a 10% failure rate? That feels terrifying. It's the exact same information, but the emotional punch is completely different. One makes you want to jump in, the other makes you want to run away. And this stuff gets translated directly into the features you're asked to build all the time. That countdown timer for a special offer, that's creating a fear of losing the deal. Only 2 left in stock. That's the fear of losing the chance to buy. It's all about framing the choice around what the user is about to lose if they don't act. All right, our next tool is called social proof. This is our natural human tendency to look at what other people are doing and just assume that's the correct thing to do, especially when we feel uncertain. It's a mental shortcut that says, hey, if everyone else is doing it, it's probably a safe bet. If you want to see a masterclass in social proof, just go to the WordPress homepage. They don't just say, hey, we're popular. They hit you with this. A whopping 35% of the internet is built on WordPress. That number is so huge, it creates instant authority. It makes you think, wow, okay, if a third of the internet trusts this, it must be legit. And you implement this stuff constantly. Customer testimonials, star ratings, those little banners that say 10,000 people signed up this week. These aren't just decorative bits of UI. They are crucial trust signals, all designed to make a new user feel safer and more confident in their choice. Last tool for today is anchoring. This is a subtle but powerful bias where we tend to rely way too much on the very first piece of information we get. That first piece of info becomes an anchor, and every other judgment we make is based on its position. The most classic example you see everywhere is the original price crossed out next to the sale price. That original price is the anchor. Suddenly, the sale price doesn't just feel cheap, it feels like an incredible deal in comparison. Showing the most expensive subscription plan first does the same thing. It anchors your sense of value high, so the other plans seem much more reasonable. Now, you can probably tell this is some pretty powerful stuff. And because it's so powerful, we have to talk about how to use it responsibly. This is super important. It really all comes down to intent. There's a clear line in the sand. On one side, you have persuasion. It's about helping users achieve their goals, being transparent, and building long-term trust. On the other side, you have manipulation, what we call dark patterns. That's about tricking users, hiding options, and creating fake urgency, all of which completely destroys user trust. As the person writing the code, you are often the last line of defense against this. The goal, the ethical way to apply all of this, is something called nudge theory. It's about subtly guiding users toward better decisions without ever taking away their freedom to choose. Think of it like putting fruit at eye level in a cafeteria. You can still go get the cheesecake if you want, nobody's stopping you, but we're making the healthier choice the easier choice. That's a nudge. Okay, so we've been deep in psychology land. Let's bring it all back home. Why does any of this really matter for you, the person who's actually building the software? Because understanding this stuff is what elevates you from just being a coder to being a true products collaborator. You stop just looking at a ticket and start understanding the why behind it. You can spot these patterns in designs and ask way smarter questions in planning meetings. You can even suggest better, more effective implementations because you don't just get the tech, you get the user. That's how you become invaluable. So I'll leave you with this challenge. The next time you're scrolling through your phone, pay attention. After everything we've talked about today, what's the first irrational pattern you're going to notice in the apps you use every single day? Once you see it, you can't unsee it.